Thank you. Well, good afternoon. So you've seen the theme, how to keep wine relevant in the digital era. So by now, we all know the importance of digital marketing. Well, I hope we do, in terms of connecting and attracting consumers to our wine brands. And in the wake of the pandemic, we've seen that online is even more important than ever, especially when it comes to attracting new consumers. We've seen that Boca, which is Spain's largest online e-commerce site, wine commerce site, has had an increase of 200%. Oh yeah, that's what we need. Bring on the Amontillado. It is Sherry Week. So Boca, which is Spain's largest online e-commerce site, has reported 200% increase in 2020, but they've maintained that increase by 100% in the last year as well. And a recent report by Wine Intelligence in the States reported that 44%, I think it's 44%, of US wine consumers look to social media to make their wine buying choices. So with that in mind, we're in this digital world that's moving really, really fast. And even for me, who's worked in digital for 15 years, it can be extremely overwhelming when it changes every week. There's a new platform, there's a new way in which to engage, there's a new trend. It's like, how do wine brands... We've got some background. So how do wine brands even get started when it's so overwhelming? And then when you get started, how do you maintain it? And then how do you stay relevant? So this is what we're going to talk about in the next 30 minutes which is we're going to give some tips, and we're going to talk about 3 key components that we believe will help wine brands to stay relevant in digital, but not just stay relevant, to grow with it, because digital is only going to get bigger. So those three components are content, community, and channels. And to talk about that, I'm joined by 2 extremely brilliant marketing and wine communication experts who are leaders in, not just in communications, but in wine communications, one of which is here with me, Georgia, who is... No, I'm going to talk to you about it. So we're also, this is new, that we're doing a panel with also a guest that's going to come in on video in a second. So Georgia's travelled with us from Athens. She's more well known to her community of more than 112,000 followers on Instagram alone as Wine Genie. But just on that point about the followers, it's not just about the followers, it's the engagement. And that's something that Georgia's done an incredible job of every post you see she does. She has this gift of telling the story behind the wine and the essence of where it's come from, opposed to it just being a cute picture with a bottle of wine and why you should drink it. So Georgia actually combines her background as a chemical engineer and her expertise in wine to offer solutions that enable brands to share their voice. So she's going to talk about community. So moving on to Madeline Puckette, who is the co-founder of Wine Folly. She's joining us live from San Francisco. Bring on Madeline. Let's hope it works. Here she is. Good morning. It's really early there. Thanks so much for getting up, Madeline. How are you?
I'm happy to be here.
We're very, very happy to have you. I'm especially stoked that you were able to join us, because we both are. We're huge fans of your work. So let me introduce you formally. Madeline is the co-founder of Wine Folly, as I just said, an award-winning brand dedicated to wine and consumer education. She's produced 2 books, one of which is a New York bestseller, and the other a James Beard Award winner. And in 2019, hey, nice. And who's got the book in the room? Oh, quite a few hands. You can't see them all, they're in the dark, but there's quite a few hands. So, and Madeline also was awarded by the IWSC Wine Communicator of the Year, which is an exceptional award to win, because it basically is that you are the pinnacle of wine communication. So it's fantastic to have her here today. And Madeline's going to talk about content and how you can be smarter with your content, and how wineries can be smarter with their content and get over technological boundaries. So Madeline, let's jump in with you. We know that the team at Wine Folly are experts at developing engaging content to connect with consumers. I think the fact you've got 20 million visitors a year on just the site, not to mention your social following. To maintain this sort of global engagement, though, you need to have a constant content strategy. So I think it would be great if you could talk to us about what actually we mean by content strategy?
Certainly. I think when you talk about content strategy, you kind of have to break up the two pieces. What is content and what is strategy? And with content, what I've come to learn, because as a visual communicator, as a designer first, I have a degree in fine art and music technology, and content isn't just words. Content is pictures, it's phrases, it's memes, it's ideas, it's photography, it's infographics, it's stuff. Content is this stuff. And then strategy is your ability to produce stuff consistently. And that is all that strategy is. Because what we've learned in testing different strategies is once you find something that works, how do you recreate it, reproduce it, and do more of it? Because audiences they're habitual. They want to see the same thing, but the different version of the same thing over and over again. So a TV show, it's the same characters. They're just in a different plot this time, you know? And so this level of consistency is probably the most important thing. And it is the combination of finding the stuff that you can create and pairing it with a consistent schedule is what creates success. And what we do is when we test things, we see the initial volume of interest of that thing, and then we go, well, let's do it again. And we try a variant of it, and we do it 10 times in a row. And if it's a good thing, 10 times is enough for us to build an audience with that thing. And it's crazy because it's happened with every single thing that we've done in Wine Folly. A short story. When we started Wine Folly, it was going to be a wine club. I was going to travel around the world, find great wines, make video content. This is back in 2011, and have an online wine club and share it with our club members. And that didn't really, 2011 might have been a little bit too early, although we're very much on that thing right now. But what I did to market the wine club was to create useful infographics about wine. I created one, it did well. So I created another and another and another, and I created a system of creating infographics. Now, a winery brand doesn't necessarily have to be a publishing house like we are. A winery brand actually has a lot of content that they produce naturally without even thinking about it. It's the wines that they produce. And the wines actually have all this information and story around them, this content around a single bottle of wine. It's the vintage, it's the person who made it, it's the contents of the bottle, the grape varieties therein, the alcohol level, the technical data. All of this information is actually content. And you have already a consistent model of producing that content every year because you make wine every single year. And what you need is some consistent way of putting out that content every single year and disseminating that content every single year. So regardless of what channel you choose to publish and that sort of a thing, the most important thing is to look at what you have. What can you do around yourself? What is the stuff that you can create? And I immediately go back to, who are the winemakers? Who is the winery? What is the land? What are the wines we're producing? All of these areas have areas in which consistent content can be made every single year. What is the story of the vintage? Who is the winemaker this year? What are they struggling with right now? What is this like? What is going? What does it look like today in Jerez today? Like, what is that story? And those pieces, the stuff that's around you, is actually the stuff that you can create a strategy with. And I could go in deeper, but I don't know if that's what.
Yeah, no, that was. I think that was more than exceptional answer. It's interesting segue on that though, because we know you've just released a new product called the Wine Regions product. Was all of this sort of process of all the incredible non-stop content that you've been making and researching over the years, is this how the Wine Region product was born? Can you tell us about the Wine Region product?
Absolutely. So I started to realize that I am not scalable.
You
I
personally.
wish I was scalable, but unfortunately, there's limitations to this human form right here. And what I started realizing was that every single wine I looked at had this deep story around it. And so I would talk about a region on our blog, Bordeaux, friggin' was somewhere, anywhere, Bordeaux. And I would introduce Bordeaux to the world and talk about how to find interesting wines in Bordeaux. And every single time I did that, our followers would be like, what wines should I drink? I need to see the wines now. I want to see the wines in which to buy. And I didn't want to give them a list of wines. It goes against, it doesn't make sense for me to pick favorites. Like, I am trying to represent the wine world in an unbiased way and put education first. So why would I pick specific wines unless I'm using them as an example to talk about a style, right? I could do that, that's fair. But I don't want to play favorites. So what I started to do is think about, well, how can we do this? And I realized I needed to connect with somebody who could have a database and had an organized system of distributing wine information. So we could essentially append wines and wineries into an article with them maybe putting their information in there. And that's what created the guide. So as I merged with Global Wine Database in 2018, and we started working really hard at integrating a content model, educational content model, with the wines and wineries themselves. And we're producing our 5th one right now.
And you've just launched the Bordeaux wine region, which I must say is a massive undertaking. If you can get Bordeaux on, you can get any wine region on. No, like, there's a huge amount of onboarding in an industry that isn't very technological. I think because we're on Zoom and we all love Zoom, that why don't you share your screen and take us through actually live the new Bordeaux product that you've launched?
Certainly. You know, it's interesting that we're doing this here. I've always actually thought of Spain as extremely progressive wine culture in a lot of ways. They tend to have the highest, most modern design. We're presenting on Zoom right now in front of a group of people, which is very complex, and I've not done this in any other region. So kudos to Spain for being super progressive. Anyway, this is the Bordeaux guide. This is the content that we create. We created a video which is doing extremely well. And what's interesting is we have these sections. And if you can see here, we have wines. This is actual data from the wineries who've entered in their information into this guide. So we talk about the wines a little bit. You can explore more and learn more about the wine, but you can actually go in and click and discover the wineries and see what wines are being produced here. And I'm probably going to pick a bad example here, but I'll just start with one. So this is the producer made this wine. They added their information here. There's the grape varieties that are included in the wine, and then you can go actually and learn more about this particular winery, where it is in Bordeaux, who they are, and the wines that they have in their collection.
Can I just ask you, Madeline, has the winery put this information in, or has Folly?
So wineries can add their own information into this. It's free, actually. It's a free tool for wineries to use, because my hope is to, we have like a premium option, which has more neat stuff and will put you higher, but like in the sorting order. But ultimately my goal is to make this as easy as possible for wineries to get their information, that wine story, that winery story. So for example, these guys added their winemakers in, which is really cool because I can actually associate the winemaker with the wines that they've created. So we can go in and look at one of the wines they've created and add the winemaker to this wine. And if you're a winemaker, you could actually have a collection of wines that are associated to your work that you've done. The tool that we have, this data model, is extremely powerful in that way. But what's so interesting is that while we're learning about a region, Bordeaux, like you said, is extremely complex. They don't even know how many, they say they have 65 appellations, but they actually have 53 named appellations and 65 different types of wine that you can legally produce in Bordeaux. And I didn't know that until I made this guide. It was so hard. And so you can go in and learn about the Medoc. You can see the appellations of the Medoc here in Bordeaux. And then you can even go into the specific appellation, see potential wineries that are here. We mention a few famous wineries in that region, and then see the wines that are from this area. So these are the wines of Margaux here. So
can I just interrupt? How will the wineries of Bordeaux be able to use this for their own marketing purposes? Because it's on Wine Folly, which obviously is huge traffic and exposure. Then how can the wineries use this?
So the wineries, by creating consistent information every year, their wine story every single year, and their story of their winery, all they have to do is add their new wine in. That's it. And with our model of discovery and through search engine optimization and discovery, we're driving traffic to these guides organically. I always like to say we're an all organic business. We do a lot of organic with the way that we bring in an audience because they are interested in learning first and foremost. And your learners are going to be the ones who are most interested in purchasing because they have created this intense desire to understand through discovery. So when you're learning about something is when you're most open to trying that thing. And so in that moment of learning through these regional guides, which are education first based, that winery has an opportunity to be like, I am part of this area. This is my wine that is here. And all they have to do is have a bottle shot, bottle information, and add their winemaker and winery into the set. And then it's up to the user is going to see all of these and be able to access this. And what's so interesting about these guides, what I've been discovering, is they feature wines that maybe nobody has heard of. Like there's always that producer who's extremely well marketed and is really pushed into a region and has really exceptionally done an exceptional job. But what's exposed to us in these guides are the unknown about wineries.
So it's supporting the little guys as well. It's like quite a balanced approach.
It's even. It's a little bit more just even. Like it's equal share. Like if you have a wine and you make a wine in Margaux, you can show up in the Margaux section next to Chateau Margaux, which everybody knows about because it's a Grand Cru Classé, and they've been riding that Grand Cru Classé thing since 1855. So that's what's so cool about the guide is this exposure of undiscovered things. And I want to, this is maybe an aside here, but one of the things that I've found that I constantly get asked by anyone who's serious about a region is they ask me this question. And I can't even tell you how many times I get asked it. It happens all the time. They say, I'm going to this place. What wineries do you know that are lesser known, that are maybe smaller operators, that I can go visit while I'm there and discover what this region is really all about? And I'm always like, I get this question every single day.
So do I. Do you, Georgia? That's one of the key. Yeah, everyone wants to know the unknown and the behind the scenes and the guys that no one knows about.
Yeah. And so I want to give wineries the opportunity to get that exposure, to be found. And I don't want to do it, I'm not scalable. So I want to allow wineries and regions to become scalable to communicate the wines and wineries within them. And honestly, to empower people like Georgia, because she's amazing. Like if you need to get content strategy help with your wine brand, please talk to her. But like she needs to be empowered to communicate. Like I want to empower her with the information so that she can go to marketplace with her amazing ideas.
Oh, that's lovely. I think that's a great segue to introduce Georgia to talk about community.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you so much for your kind words, because actually Madeline was my...
1 second. I'm going to make sure you get your sound right.
Okay.
Actually, why don't I give you the microphone?
Okay. So thank you, Madeline, for your kind words, because Madeline was actually my inspiration and the first person that, you know, I discovered when I entered in the wine business, and I would never expect that I would meet her, and actually now be in front of an audience and talking with her. So for me, I'm super honored to be with you today, with both of you.
We're honored to have you, Georgia.
Thank you for that.
So I'm going to throw to you now, and I'm going to project. So what challenges do you typically see with wineries when they begin their social media strategy?
Yeah. So from my side, when I entered in the business 5 years ago, my background was basically engineering. So I was just starting to educate myself about wine. I was doing my master's degree, etc. And as an engineer, I had this, let's say, love about solving problems. And the problem that I saw when I connected with wineries, when I started visiting them, was that they have such a huge story, so much content to share, as Madeline said before, but they don't know exactly how to use these mediums. So to make a long story short, today I work with brands both as an ambassador, communicating their story through my channels, and also I have my own boutique social media agency, and I build their social media strategy, so behind the scenes. And to tell you the truth, when I started pitching what I do to the wineries, it was very difficult for them to understand exactly what I was doing, first of all.
How many years ago was this?
That was, I think, three years ago, when I established, let's say, my agency. So for them, first of all, it's very difficult to understand the platforms. So when they are basically trying to do that by themselves. So they try to work on social media without knowing exactly how its platform works, which is a problem. Also, they don't understand that it's a proper job, because it takes knowledge, it takes time, it takes, you know, creativity. It's a lot of work. And because of the fact that it's totally normal, you know, a producer doesn't have to be a marketer, a salesperson, but okay, in smaller to medium, let's say, businesses, you have to do everything, and I understand that completely. But because of that, they think that, okay, I can give the social media to my daughter, to my sister, to a younger person.
To mi primo.
Exactly. But this is, again, it's difficult for them to understand that, you know, you need someone either to consult, like an expert, or maybe an agency, which is absolutely, again, great. So the main challenge is that they don't know exactly what they want to get out of the social media. So they don't know if they want, let's say, to communicate my story, to grow my brand awareness, to profit, you know, make sales. And this is because most of the time they don't have a proper marketing strategy in general. So it's not just about the digital marketing strategy, it's about having a proper plan.
So it's having a 360 marketing strategy, and social and digital is a big part of that. But first and foremost, what is your overall marketing strategy?
So if you don't have a proper strategy, then you can't build actually your storytelling. As Madeline said before, you don't know exactly how to distribute the content or what type of content to get out there. And when they do that, because most of the times they do it by themselves, they don't have the proper language for each specific platform. So they use a different way to communicate something on, let's say, Facebook, different on they use the same language for all the platforms, which is wrong. And in the end, they don't get the right message they want out there and to the proper audience.
So this is how, it's just a good segue to talk about the way in which that you influence actual engagement.
Exactly.
So when I introduced you, we talked about your followers, because, you know, the whole influencer movement is very controversial now, because we all know you can buy followers, but it's the engagement that actually is what you should be looking for. You've got huge engagement. So, and I think everyone looks after you to go, how is she getting the engagement? I mean, Madeline, you do too, enormous. And you're the leaders now for what wine influencers, wine ambassadors, whatever we want to call them, get engagement. So what tips can give for how you actually get people to engage and react to your content and cut through?
Yeah, it takes a lot of work. So as I told you before, you don't have to do things by yourself. Use an expert, use an agency, and these people will help you to define your goal. So when you start your strategy online, you need to know what is your goal. I want to get more followers. I want to get sales. I want, to get my message out there. Maybe I want to do everything. So it's important to know your goal, because on this is the most important thing that your content will be based on, and also your strategy. Another thing that it's important, it's of course to know what is your niche audience. So who am I talking to? Where are these people based? What are their interests? What is their gender, their age? So it's important to know your audience, and of course to find a very specific voice that you talk to them. So your voice, your why also. This is something that you will probably find everywhere in the marketing, let's say strategists. They always say, find your why. What is your core value, of the brand? And this will really help you build your storytelling properly. Because your storytelling will win your audience. It will help you to build a good story. So build your story, find the right platforms, because maybe your audience is not on Instagram. Maybe it's on TikTok, for example. Yeah. So find the right platform, produce content of value, as Madeline said before. So content that gives information to your audience, or entertains them, or inspires them. And of course, engage, interact, reply to the comments, to the people, and always search for inspiration in order to elevate every time your content and stay relevant.
So you've been in the sherry country with us for the last 2 days, only 48 hours really. What have you seen in this short amount of time that could help any of the wine industry here today on how they could evolve their digital strategies based on what you've seen?
Yeah, so I'm here just for a couple of days, so I can't really, build a whole strategy behind it. But
two takeaways.
Yeah, so from what I've seen, sherry is a very, very complicated product. And most of the people that we see, they don't know anything about wine. I mean, the regular consumer, he doesn't know about wine, so let's make things less complicated. So people like you, for example, who are responsible for the communication and everything, it's very important that you really break down this information with super content like Madeline proposed. So make the content relevant, user-friendly, and stay digital. It's very important that the whole region really collaborates, because this is why you keep your brand consistent. This is how you actually build a strong message and you can distribute it online. And because, my generation, we are with our smartphone all the time. I mean, this is how you reach us. This is how you market us. And as I was explaining the other day with Chelsea, I think that most of the wineries, maybe they don't need, let's say, each one a digital marketing expert. They can even have a full agency, like working for all of them, so they can cut down the cost and everything. And digital marketing is a way of marketing your products that it's not expensive. Sometimes the producers are very afraid. I'm gonna spend a lot of money there. It's very expensive. No, it's not. And it brings results that you can see, in numbers, in sales, in engagement, in everything, compared to the traditional marketing.
Yeah, and you get instant results that you can
Exactly,
measure immediately. So we've talked about content, a bit about content. There's a lot to unpack here in half an hour. We've talked about community, so let's just talk a little bit about channels before we wrap up. When we talk about channels, both the girls have mentioned this, that we're talking about what platforms people are on. Like, it's the days of creating one size fits all and creating one TV ad that you put on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, on your display, I think are long gone. But Madeline, I'm keen to know from you, because you work on so many channels, how do you go about at Wine Folly looking at, first of all, you're going to produce an infographic. Like, how do you go into that and look at how many channels you're going to put that across?
Well, with different channels, I like to think of it, I think of channels almost like a marketplace and being able to communicate in the language of that marketplace. So if you're speaking a different language, you're not going to be heard. And that is the primary issue with designing for a channel. And what's great about understanding the channels is you realize it's actually very easy to distribute content appropriately on each channel, but you need to know the foundation of every channel. And I'll give you a couple of examples. TikTok, short form, high energy content. That is vertical video. Better not be anything but vertical. LinkedIn, long form education, business focused content. It's one of our fastest growing channels. And I think it's so interesting, especially for a small producer to be involved in LinkedIn. Highly recommended. If you want to know how a channel works, go use it. Yeah. Go walk through that marketplace and try to buy things, basically. And see what appeals to you. And those are the answers. That's the core of how that channel operates. And Instagram, it used to be you could just make a little square post, and now it's all about IG stories and reels. And those are the most successful pieces that I tend to see doing. And carousels. So and a carousel is like, it's like a mini article almost. You start with one idea, and then by the end you can almost tell a story through 10 slides essentially.
And it's gold on the algorithm as well.
Yeah, and what's important to understand about these channels, YouTube, last example, has micro short form, which can be vertical, but it also has medium form and long form content. Medium form being up to about 11 minutes, and long form anything over 11 minutes. It can be 2 hours. A great example of a producer who did long form content that blew everyone away was people use YouTube as a background. My husband is this person. He just has YouTube on constantly, like literally constantly. He's the boy of the internet. And sometimes he runs these backgrounds of people walking through cities. And they'll just be holding a 4K camera and walking around the city for about 40 minutes. And they get millions of views. Yep. So if there is beautiful stuff to be seen in the region, in the Sherry region, if they get a 4K camera and just walk around. And what this guy did in Napa is they're biodynamic, and so they always have sheep coming in to go eat up the weeds. So one day they just set up a camera and they just shot for 4 hours sheep eating weeds, and it had millions of views because we're all sitting in the city confined, and we just want to have beautiful nature around us. So people were playing it as a background to hear happy sheep and hear the birds and the weeds. Yeah. So like, that's what I mean by understanding what those examples are. What is long form content? How are people using it? My husband's using it as a background to create peace and happiness in his life. So it can be as simple as setting up a camera or walking around a region to create compelling and interesting content. Yeah. So that's essentially channels. Knowing what each channel is for and how people are using it, and the easiest way to do that is to go use it yourself. Yeah. And if you don't need to be omnipresent like Wine Genie and myself. We have an omnipresence issue that we have to solve, and that's literally our company, and that it takes many people to do. But pick one and stick to it and be consistent, and that will get you.
That'll get you the cut through and the relevance. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you just realize you're really good at short form TikTok video and that's what you want to do, just focus on that. That's fine. That's acceptable. You might have a lot of teenagers interested in your wine, but that's another issue.
Well, unfortunately, I'm getting the wind up. I could sit and talk to both of you for hours. Like, it's like music to my ears of what I've been boasting and banging on about for years. But been so great to have both of you here. I want to thank you both for your generosity of time and knowledge and enthusiasm and sharing all of this wisdom with us. Given it's day 3 of International Sherry Week, I'm going to finish the panel with a short video which actually shows how with Sherry Week we've used content, community and channels to stay relevant over 8 years. So, but before I go, I want to thank you both again. Give the girls a big round of applause so Madeline can hear in San Francisco. And after the video, there'll be a slide that comes up with the girls' handles so that you can follow them. And if you do want to ask us any questions, you can send us a DM on the Sherry Wine Sereth Instagram account, and we'll do our best to send you some answers back. I didn't tell you about that one yet, Madeline, but you know. And we're going to see you here in Sherry Country for sure next year. So on that, thank you very much for your time. Thanks to Copperhead for having us, and yeah, happy Sherry Week. Ciao.
Thank you.
Sorry, I saw it. Play video.